Namaste. The CYTER, Center for Yoga Therapy Education and Research, has been functioning in the Sri Balaji Vidyapith University since November 1, 2010. CYTER is an innovative center. It is a center focusing on salutogenesis, all the causes and the methods to maintain, sustain, and attain health in the individual.
The innovative focus of CYTER is on salutogenesis, the concept of health promotion and disease prevention and management that enables us to work towards the holistic health and well-being for all. All students of the constituent colleges of Sri Balaji Vidyapith are exposed to the yoga training on a regular basis.
Yoga, the ancient art and science given to us by the Indian civilization, the gift to the entire humankind, is being propagated through Sri Balaji Vidyapith in an innovative manner. Here at CYTER, because we are in a healthcare medical institution, we are able to serve those patients who are suffering from various psychosomatic, lifestyle, stress-induced disorders. Patients at our hospital, the Mahatma Gandhi Medical Hospital here, they get the yoga therapy as part of the entire treatment protocol. A patient with diabetes would get the diabetic management of modern medicine, and in addition, the adjuvant therapy of yoga along with it. Similarly, we are doing work in psychiatry, we are doing work in dermatology, neurology, neurosurgery, and of course, obstetrics and gynecology. At CYTER, we are focusing on three aspects: therapy, education, and research.
Yoga is the greatest contributions of India to entire mankind of the world. Recently, the government of India is currently promoting indigenous system of health, including yoga, in strong manner through the Ministry of Ayush.
As a therapeutic center in a medical institution, we have given yoga therapy as individual, small group, and larger group settings for more than 52,000 patients in the last 9.5 years. We have looked at giving them an opportunity to heal themselves, facilitating the self-resilience and self-healing mechanisms through adjuvant yoga therapy. Along with this, we have done extensive research. The research in the form of 19 completed projects, 88 publications, 31 abstracts, and 9 copyrights in the name of Sri Balaji Vidyapith.
CYTER has contributed to many best practices that are innovative, and 9 of these have received copyright registration in the name of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, and 3 of them are very close to our heart because we address the neglected sectors of the population through these best practices. One for the special children through the Divyanga Yoga, and second one for the senior citizen of the society through the Silver Yoga, and third one to the transgender population through the salutogenic approach to the transgenders. And through these, we are alleviating the problems, many of their problems which have not been addressed through the yoga techniques, through the various aspects and concepts of yoga. We are able to reach out to them through these practices and techniques.
I am Dayanidhi, working as a yoga lecturer at CYTER SBV. I am really happy to doing my PhD yoga therapy at CYTER. Here we have a hands-on experience with patients coming from various departments. Also, we can go into different wards, even ICU, to giving yoga therapy for the various kinds of patients. And here CYTER, we can build a connection between modern science, allopathy, with the ancient science, yoga.
Looking into the hows, whys, and the mechanisms of how yoga therapy enhances healing, facilitating a state of health physically, emotionally, mentally, socially, and even spiritually. We are very unique because we can offer different yoga therapy academic programs under the banner of Sri Balaji Vidyapith.
CYTER has started various programs such as diplomas, postgraduate certificate programs, MPhil programs, as well as PhD programs in yoga. In addition to that, in the field of academics, for the first time, we have introduced yoga therapy in the curriculum of nursing college in our institute.
Our therapy programs are ranging from PG certificates in yoga as a therapy, PG diploma in yoga therapy, MPhil in yoga therapy, all the way up to the PhD in yoga therapy.
Hi, I'm Ellie Wilson. I'm visiting from Australia. I am doing an internship with CYTER. I've had many amazing experiences working in the hospital, in the neurosurgery department, neurology, and recently general surgery.
Numerous students have graduated as yoga therapists, becoming the first to come out of this innovative setting in a modern healthcare institution. We have been celebrating the International Day of Yoga right since the first such day in 2015, and every year a minimum of a week, if not 2 to 3 weeks of activities involving various stakeholders, thus propagating yoga in its holistic manner. CYTER is one of the rare centers in the whole world where yoga therapy is part and parcel of the day-to-day activities of a medical institution. Our patients benefit from yoga. The students of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, whether they are medical, dental, or nursing, they are exposed to yoga as part of their curricular and extracurricular activities. This is truly one of its kind center in the world, and we thank the international community for its support for all our activities. We thank the benevolent management of Sri Balaji Vidyapith, the visionary administrators who enable us to do our best to bridge the traditional system of yoga with modern medicine.
Promotion of yoga in the society, among the students, among the people, and we'll keep our flag of SBV flying very high.
As the World Health Organization is saying today, traditional, complementary, integrative medicine is the future of medicine, and CYTER is striving to achieve that future right today, along with your wonderful cooperation. Thank you. Namaste, Swagatam, Vanakkam. Such a pleasure to be with all of you. Namaste, Dr. Manjunath ji. Such a pleasure to have you with us at SBV today. I take this opportunity to welcome all of our participants to day 7 of this magnificent week-long Yoginar celebrating IDY 2021 by Sri Balaji Vidyapith. Let us begin with a prayer. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu
Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Namaste, Vanakkam, Swagatam. Bonjour, Bonasera, Bonanotte. Welcome everyone to this wonderful day 7. It's a Sunday morning here in this part of the world. A magnificent day of the sun, a solar day. Surya is our sun day. And we have with us a wonderful opportunity today to hear one of the most amazing young stars of the yoga world. We have with us Dr. Manjunath Sharma, and I welcome you, sir, to today's event where we are so honored to have you with us. Dr. Manjunath is trained in the Bachelor of Naturopathy and Yogic Sciences coming from the Premier Institute in Ujjayi, run by the most amazing, benevolent supporter of yoga and naturopathy, Sri Hegde ji. He was not satisfied with that. He said life has something more to offer and went on to do his PhD in yoga, specializing in geriatric medicine. Long before people knew that term, he looked into geriatrics and has been honored with the Doctorate of Science, DSc in Yoga, for his most amazing yoga research contribution to the world. Dr. Manjunath has served for many years as the Director of Research Anveshana in SVYASA Yoga University, the topmost university for yoga, which has NAC A++ rankings and run by Guruji Nagendra ji, the visionary founder who has had a journey from Manasa to SVYASA and currently guiding through yoga our present Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji. In addition to being Director of Research for many years, with a very clear-cut analytical analysis of yoga research, its strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat, Dr. Manjunath has been recently elevated as Pro-Vice Chancellor of the SVYASA University. And on behalf of myself and SBV and CYTER in our yoga family, we congratulate you, sir, on that. Now, in addition to this is the official introduction of Dr. Manjunath. He and I have known each other for a couple of decades now. And I think one of the first things that drew me to him when we met at Yoganjali Natyalayam more than 2 decades ago, when he visited Pondicherry, was the fact that he's also trained in Mridangam. So my training in Mridangam, his training in Mridangam, I think immediately the rhythmic patterns came together and it started to go in a pattern of Layam. And since then, I have considered him a very dear friend in the field of yoga, yoga therapy, yoga research. One of the very clear-headed, common sense, rational persons in the modern world of yoga research, yoga therapy, and yoga in general. And I admire when I find such people. So I admire Dr. Manjunath a lot. And with this word of appreciation and welcome, we welcome you, Manjunath ji, to share with us your thoughts on yoga research, where we have been, where we are going, and anything under the sun that you wish to share with us. Today is the Sunday, so anything under the sun, you are most welcome. Namaste and Swagatam.
Namaste, namaste to everyone, and thank you very much, Acharya, Yogacharya, Balayogi ji. We always remember you in multiple ways. So whenever we want to feel happy, we call you Ananda. Whenever we want to remember our gurus, we call you Yogacharya. And whenever we want to look at spiritually elevated person, we look at call you Balayogi. So it's so wonderful to have known somebody like you. And today, it's a great opportunity for me to spend some time with all of you, sharing some of my experiences and also putting together the information from the works of other people, where the credit goes to everybody, those who have contributed to yoga research, not just me. I remember Pondicherry for multiple reasons, and particularly, as you just mentioned now, that my whole yoga research journey, in particular dissemination part of it, started from Pondicherry. So the same day when I visited your place, exactly 25 years back, that was the first ever research presentation I made in my life at JIPMER Pondicherry. So there were many good things to recollect today. Number one, so my research dissemination journey started in Pondicherry. Number two, my chairperson for that presentation was none other than Dr. W. Selvamurthy. So I have a wonderful picture. And I was invited by Dr. Madan Mohan. And then I had the opportunity to meet Dr. Bijlani. And I traveled with Dr. Shelley Tellis, and I met you. So when I saw the list of speakers in this conference, it gave me such a wonderful recollection of sweet memories what I had in that one visit to Pondicherry, and I am sure I'm going to cherish it for a long time. So thanks once again for inviting me, giving me an opportunity to talk. Thanks to Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth, the Vice Chancellor, and all other authorities who have been promoting yoga, yoga research, yoga therapy, and bringing it to common man in a most simple possible way. So thanks to everybody, and to all those who are participating today. Wishing you in advance a happy International Yoga Day. So let me start by saying that you have taken salutogenesis as a theme for not just for this conference, but for CYTER. So I really thought it's such an amazing futuristic thinking, because after another 15-20 years, people are going to adopt this as the most common thing as part of the beneficial effects what yoga can give. But so happy to see CYTER adopting it right from the beginning. And this conference also will bring all those greatest personalities in the field of yoga, yoga therapy, to actually share their thoughts on this concept of salutogenesis. So let me share my screen so that I can put some of my slides. I'm sure you can see my slides.
Yes, yes. Wonderful.
Thank you. So as Dr. mentioned now, that I'm making an attempt to bring all that information together. This is not limited to what I am going to present, but the field and the information is so vast. So I have called it as historical perspectives and recent trends in yoga research. If you basically ask a question, how did yoga research evolve? First of all, we say very casually and commonly that yoga is an ancient Indian tradition as well as science. So the research component, documentation component, and also doing an analysis and coming out with inferences was definitely known to our great yoga masters and rishis thousands of years back. This journey of modern understanding of yoga can be traced back to little more than 100 years now. And it has started with the basic curiosity. Okay, I'm talking about the present day yoga research. And actually it has progressed very well once people started mentioning, people started noting the health benefits of yoga. And also when people started using yoga and yoga in a form yoga therapy for disease management. Today, it has moved quite ahead in actually bringing the understanding of yoga and yoga research to such a level, like moving from physiological effects to molecular mechanisms. And of course, it's not limited to that. We have moved from understanding the physical body and going to understand mind. And of course, present day, we have moved beyond that to go for few consciousness-based studies. Once again, if we look back and say, is this assessing something a new age methodology? I would say that assessment using various objective and subjective tools was a common method used thousands of years back. So what we always think that in the ancient practices, it was just said and nobody used to question that and you have to just do it. No. Everything was based on a scientific methodology of assessment. Whatever we are talking today, the same methodologies were there. They also knew the methods to understand both subtle world, inside and outside. Okay, so what we are looking at is the outside world. But earlier time, it was so clear in making this process inward and outward. Two philosophies like Purva Mimamsa and Uttara Mimamsa, which are regarded as the best of the philosophies, which give a lot of information to us, which is equivalent to present day science and technology. So these methodologies were adopted in such a beautiful manner. Like for everything, there used to be an eligibility criteria. And eligibility is not just based on not for getting into something, but also when you get into something, how do you progress from one level to the other level? So for a teacher and student, starting from there used to be methodologies to identify whether an individual is progressing or not. It is so well said for a student that tatvitti pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. So you need to have some special qualities and you are tested on that, how well you are developing these. So there used to be a rating on each one of them and then a student used to make a progress. Similarly, a teacher. So one simple definition for who can be a teacher is he should be a Shrotriya and Brahmanista. So somebody who has that knowledge base which is complete in itself, and somebody who actually is highly elevated in his spiritual journey. So same principles apply to when you want to look at the progress what a student makes when he is getting into yoga. So like asanas, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana and dhyana, each one of them, how do you understand that somebody is making a progress? And somebody has to move from a basic to advanced. So there are wonderful methodologies. You evaluate, you assess, then you infer that this is how you have moved. So even that time, there used to be personalized rating scales, be it gunas. We know the sattva tamas rajas based personality type analysis done. There are hundreds of guna questionnaires today. I look at one very simple guna questionnaire developed from Bhagavad Gita, Gita inventory, which is very simple yet gives wonderful information about an individual's personality type. Similarly, Ayurveda talks about Prakriti, which is depicting body constitution. Doshas, looking at the principal function systems like Vata, Pitta and Kapha. Agni, the digestive fire. And in yoga, particularly in the nadis. So there used to be such a wonderful method from how do you understand in which nadi there is a flow of energy and how do you move from one to the other and how do you make it a balanced one. So the methodologies were so well described and also including the energy plexus, which is nothing but chakras. Objectively, the present day modern medical or modern day research has evolved methodologies, probably we can trace back them to a little more than 400 years. So what exactly we look when we actually adopt the modern day research methodology? Basically, we are looking at whatever we want to measure, whether it is physically measurable. Okay. So once we can do that, then can you reproduce the result, whatever you are seeing, under different circumstances and conditions? And can you generalize these results without having any binding on region and place, etc.? So hence objective validation has become the foundation of modern day understanding of research. So let me take you back to yoga research. So as I said, it all started with a curiosity. So when great yoga masters started claiming that I can actually attain or reach exceptional feats, what you think is not what normal, what you think is beyond human or physiological capacity, I can actually achieve it by the practice of yoga. And second is, as I mentioned, it was supported by health benefits, and finally it was applied to disease management. So yoga research has its roots in all these three dimensions. Earliest experiments were conducted by none other than Swami Ananda. And of course, we have the works of other people like N.C. Paul and Major D. Basu in the late 19th century. And also the works of Sri Yogendra, and of course, followed by Swami Ananda. Many of you have heard about Kaivalyadam, and that's where Swami Ananda has initiated lots of these clinical studies as early as, basic research studies and followed by clinical studies as early as 1920s. So these are some images for you, courtesy Kaivalyadam. So where experiments were conducted as early as 1930s with such instrumentation, understanding the electrical activity of the brain on one side, electrical activity of the heart on the other side, and various other physiological functions when an individual was put in an underground pit. So basically, when an individual gets into deep samadhi or deep meditative practice, what exactly happens to his body and mind was studied. Similar attempts were made to understand metabolic changes. For example, even today we find it difficult to evaluate and measure various functions. But the beauty is on yoga, looking at the benefits of yoga, such studies were conducted during that time. Apart from conducting studies, Swami Ananda was the greatest of yoga masters on one side and researcher on the other side. So this is one famous study where he has looked at the intra-abdominal changes, pressure changes following the Nauli Kriya. So how he did it, he took X-rays and actually did compared the radiographic images and then actually measured the pressure changes. So you can see such eminent personalities like Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, etc. They have visited these laboratories as early during that period to actually look at whatever claims these yoga masters are making, or can those be scientifically validated. So these are a few other studies looking at what exactly happens. Apart from Swami Ananda, there are so many great yoga masters who have contributed to yoga research. Except for their volunteering for studies, it wouldn't have been possible for us to understand so many unknown facts about the beneficial effects of yoga. Sri T. Krishnamacharya, the biggest of yoga masters, he also participated in a couple of such studies. In 1935, he demonstrated that he could bring his electrical activity of the heart almost to its nil. That means he could stop his heartbeat. Another great yogi, Ramanand Yogi, he demonstrated another exceptional feat by reducing oxygen during meditation, oxygen consumption during meditation, and demonstrated the ability of slowing down the electrical activity of the heart. This you find as the very common feature in many of these studies, the ability to regulate and control electrical activity of the heart at will. That's the beauty. Swami Paramahamsa Yogananda is so well-known personality for all his contributions to yoga, including his contributions to yoga research. So he also demonstrated several exceptional feats, including the ability to reach a state of suspended animation. So we can also take our body to physiological hibernation as at will, as given or developed by the practice of yoga. So he also demonstrated ability to regulate your heart function. This is one amazing study reported. Swami Rama participated in this experiment in 1970s. What the phenomenon, what has been reported here is that, when he was able to move his electrical activity of the heart from lowest to highest, and he also wanted to bring his electrical activity to almost to a straight line, something interesting was observed. So what you call it as an atrial flutter. So where his cardiovascular system, particularly the heart, has gone into extreme tachycardia. So the heartbeat has increased to as high as 306 beats per minute. So this gave a clue that what we generally assume, that when you want to bring the electrical activity of the heart to a straight line, it is not like you keep on reducing it, okay, around 80 beats per minute to 60, then 40, then 30, etc. This is another mechanism what has been observed in many more yoga gurus who demonstrated this phenomenon, that the heart rate in the last part of it, it increases significantly, and then it gets into this phase of bringing it to almost to a nil state. Several of these studies are there. Yogi Satyamurthy gave this amazing demonstration, which was also published as a letter to the American Heart Journal in 1973, where he said that, yes, I can bring my heart ECG to a straight line. Then researchers asked him, okay, so how many seconds can you maintain it? He said that, no, generally I get into Mahasamadhi. So when I am in Mahasamadhi, my ECG remains as a straight line. So they asked, how long can you be in that state? So he said, it takes, my general practice is 7 long days. So it was a surprise to people that 7 long days, can you actually bring your physiological functions, particularly electrical activity of the heart, to a straight line? And he demonstrated it, like what you see, the trace A and B, which was there immediately after putting him into an underground pit where he was doing his Mahasamadhi, where he was into that state of Mahasamadhi. And then within a period of 2 hours, it reached a straight line and remained like that for 7 long days. And before the stipulated time of opening the underground pit, his ECG started appearing. So these are some very exceptional feats what yoga masters have demonstrated, which created that curiosity I was talking about. And it resulted in many more medical practitioners, medical researchers to look at yoga as probably a possibility of using it in various conditions, including health and disease. Finally, with this, what we learn is that we can actually use yoga research to bring in a process of conversion of yoga, which is a tradition, to a science. Many times we hear this. It's so common to me that whenever great yoga masters visit my laboratory at SVYASA, I ask them that can you please volunteer for a small experiment. There are a couple of people who have told me that, oh dear, yoga is to be experienced, not to be experimented. I agree in a way that each one of us should first experience it, otherwise the experiments have no meaning. But at the same time, great yoga masters who were sitting and doing meditations like this in this picture, what you see in Himalayas, probably when they were brought to laboratories, they could demonstrate the same exceptional feat, because it doesn't matter for them where they are. Otherwise, we always ask this question. If somebody is sitting and doing meditation under a tree, if you bring him to a laboratory, can he produce the same effect that of sitting under a tree? The answer is yes and no. Yes, for advanced yoga practitioners, meditators. No, for all those novices who need an ambience and a kind of external support to do their meditation. So the future trends, I mean, the present practices and future trends of yoga research. So we started from there, and though it has started with curiosity, though it started with exceptional feats, etc., it has taken a wonderful shape now. Yoga research has probably, but not limited to, these 4 major dimensions. Number 1 is literary research. Number 2, basic research. 3, clinical research, and 4, applied research. When you look at literary research, what we intend to do is we try compiling a lot of traditional literature on various concepts and practices of yoga. For example, in our university, there's a practice that every master's or doctoral student has to do their dissertation or thesis covering 2 parts. Part 1 is literary research, part 2 is experimental research. In this part 1, whatever the experimental research they are doing, they are supposed to compile all the information looking at various traditional texts and put it together. For example, imagine I'm studying memory in elderly people. So I was expected to actually compile all the information related to memory in traditional texts, be it coming from Patanjali Yoga Sutras or Hatha Yoga Pradipika or Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or any other text. So this also helps us in exploring ancient methods and mechanisms. Many times we think that whatever has been told thousands of years back, they were not knowing what we can understand today. But it is such a precise science, and it was very well understood during those days. The problem is we are not able to understand what is written there. We are not able to correlate and understand those underlying mechanisms which are already been very well explained there. So we also compare and correlate Oriental and Occidental approaches, basically Eastern and Western approaches. So today, this is the era of actually comparing multiple things. So we do lots of studies on yoga and meditation, etc. And today in the West, similar studies are going on, bringing the concepts of mindfulness. So how do you actually bring the commonalities between them to understand the roots? And number 2, how do you understand the differences whereby we can use them complementing each other? Also, it will help us to ask deeper research questions. Otherwise, we will get huge insights when we look at these scriptures, and that's what the benefit we can derive from literary research. The second is basic research, where there is so much of advancement which has been done in last 100 years. So what we do is to we get an insight to understand the physiological effects of different yoga practices on one side. And we can also explore the cause and effect relationship, basically to get an insight of underlying mechanisms. And we can also categorize practices based on either immediate effects or long-term benefits and effects. And we can understand various methods of combining these techniques, okay, that will help us to develop protocols either for health, for an healthy individual or for clinical conditions. And finally, what is most important, which is neglected, is also identify adverse effects and limitations, if any. So major classifications under basic research is not limited to techniques alone, but also various other aspects of yoga, including diet, your habits, and various other things. But I have picked the commonly studied things, which are asana, pranayama, relaxation techniques, meditation, including kriyas. I have highlighted meditation because the number of studies on meditation are too huge. So this picture gives you an idea about in the existing literature and publications, the number of papers representing each one of them. 60% of the papers coming only from meditation research alone, while 30% comes from pranayama or breathing related or correlated studies, while only 10% of them represent asana based studies. Many times we raise our research questions from very simple ideas. So this is a WhatsApp image many of you might have seen. The question is asked like, there's our Bhishma Pitamaha of yoga, B.K. Sayangarji, in a wonderful modified Setu Bandhasana. While below you see another intoxicated yogi, so who has tried his best to attain a similar position. So now the question is, whichever way it is, if you bend your body, are you going to get the same physiological effects? To experiment and to understand that, we first go to our Indian text. So for example, Hatha Yoga Pradipika talks about various variations of different practices, including asanas. So Shirshasana is one such practice. Everybody would like to stand on their head one at some point of our time when you are into yoga. So there are so many variations as you see here. So in the initial days, you do Shirshasana taking wall support, and once you get the mastery, you come into the center and do Shirshasana. So we asked a question, how does it matter whether you take wall support or not? When you do an inversion, whether the physiological effects are going to be same or different. So when we tried doing this, it was very clear in suggesting that it actually has some difference. So the physiological effects of inversion remain same. Like initially, there is utmost sympathetic stimulation. And what exactly happens when you do with wall support and without wall support? So when you do with wall support, we assume that because you are taking wall support, you don't have any anxiety, etc. So you can maintain it as long as you want. Unfortunately, when you are a novice for yoga and you are just learning to do Shirshasana, then it creates huge amount of anxiety in you. So the skin resistance actually reduces, suggesting skin conductance increasing, also depicting more stress in an individual. So when you do yoga, it is not just attaining a position what is important, doing it with ease, what we call it as sthiram sukham asanam. That is what is more important. And we have lots of such evidences from studies like this. And this is not just Shirshasana. There are so many asanas which have been scientifically evaluated. Padmasana, Sarvangasana, Surya Namaskar, everything suggesting amazing influences on your physiological processes. And a new trend has emerged. So understanding the biomechanics of yoga. So this is where we make an attempt to understand the principles behind biomechanics, what all that contributes to an individual's movement, basically, and movement and actually maintaining a posture. So be it joint angles, be it the muscle activity, be it the force required to move from one position to other. So all these things can be very well understood today. Lots of studies are going on in this area, and we collaborate, SVYASA collaborates with University of Manchester in UK for our studies on biomechanics on one side, and the University of Shanghai University of Sports with the kinesiology department to understand this much more in detail. So you get to know the maximum joint angles during a particular asana performance. You can also look at joint movement and force involved in it, and muscle activation pattern. When you move from one step to step 2, step 3, step 4, what exactly happens through EEG studies. And the beauty behind this is actually looking at what exactly is the correlation between what has been said earlier and what we are seeing today with the ancient wisdom and present day knowledge. So if you take the fundamental principle definition of asana, Sthiram Sukham Asana, which says that a posture is that which is firm and pleasant. So through biomechanics, can we understand the same definition? Yes. So what we say is the to maintain a position, what is described as essential components in biomechanics gel so well with the definition of asana. Like the weight-bearing joint, if it has to be firm, and that is actually the source. We say posture has to be firm. So hence, in biomechanics, we look at the weight-bearing joint, and the plane of motion has to be very smooth. So if you bring in jerky movement, the balance is affected. Other two things like center of gravity and lane of gravity have to be very well coordinated. And the muscles have to be supportive. And once you reach the final position, there should not be any disturbance. So you can maintain there with utmost ease. Another shloka which we can very well coordinate, which we can compare, is Prayatna Shaitilyam Ananta Samapatibhyam. So by slight effort and meditating on the unlimited, a posture becomes firm and pleasant. So when you talk of biomechanics, force is needed for any motion. Okay, so that's what we talk of prayatna here. And when you reach the final position, it should become so natural that you drop that effort and get established in the state of expansion. So probably when we go to the final position, it induces a transient phase of acclimatization. We get used to being there for few seconds, few minutes maybe, and body gets adopted to such a change. And the last one is samatva, what we talk, tato dvandva anabhigataha. The seed being conquered, the duality do not affect. So the dualities are good and bad, heat and cold, and all other pairs of opposites. So when you do an asana, certainly you have lots of the pairs of opposites affecting your posture. So be it muscles, so you have agonists and antagonists. Be it joints, one joint is cooperating by taking the load while the other joint wants to move, a third joint wants to stretch. So the joint position sense, the proprioception which is going into your brain also plays a major role. And the physiological processes governing them also plays a big role. So tato dvandva anabhigataha, like you need to balance these pairs of opposites to get established in a state of, in a posture. So the other area is certainly what we are looking at, pranayama. So it is so well said that when prana moves, chitta moves, and when prana is without movement, chitta is without movement. Chale vate chale chittam nischalam nischalo bhavet yogis tanutvam apnoti tadovayu nirodayet. So it's so well said. I don't know why even today we find it difficult to understand. It's such a simple exercise. You just, the way you move your breath, equally your mind moves. So if your breath is fast, your mind is fast. Your breath is slow, your mind becomes slow. You try experimenting. For example, I would say that you want to impose anger on yourself. Okay, so what basically happens is you cannot be breathing very slow and calm and show your anger on your face. To do that, you have to make your breathing very fast. Like without doing this, those emotions won't come. And also, if you want to really relax, you cannot relax your body and mind by breathing very fast. So there is a direct connection between your breathing and your actually mental processes. So to do these breathing based practices, we use multiple techniques. Either you use one nostril, both the nostrils, or you use your mouth. There are multiple ways this has been explained. When you correlate the ancient science with the modern science, what you understand is there are lots of commonalities, and you can pick those clues very well to do your research. So it is said there is we have Ida Nadi, Pingala Nadi, which are correlating Pingala to right nostril, Ida to left nostril, and there is a central Nadi called Sushumna Nadi. And the whole process is to balance these Ida and Pingala, whereby we can make the flow of energy equally, and you can balance it to flow through Sushumna Nadi. Many people ask this basic question: why you yoga people make this breathing through a nose such a big affair? Okay, like, because whether you breathe in through right nostril or left nostril, the difference is only 2.5 inches where there is nasal septum, beyond which the air gets into the same cavity. So this gives you an idea. Your nose is such an it's a wonderful laboratory. Okay, so you have so many things happening here. That's why each nostril, when you breathe, either right or left, it has an impact on a particular function of the brain, and it can also impact your physiological processes. Highly innovative. I mean, particularly the two inputs from two nerves, the olfactory nerve as well as the trigeminal nerve. Particularly what happens is all this information, not necessarily the smell alone, but also the mechanoreceptors in the olfactory bulb. When you breathe in and breathe out, it can actually get stimulated. And this has got a direct connection with multiple areas in the brain, including your thalamo-hypothalamic areas, and also various other parts of your cerebral cortex. And brainstem actually regulates all your autonomic functions. So the trigeminal nerve coming from here brings in lots of inputs to your nostrils, and whatever changes you are expecting, you can see. We will see in next another few slides such changes, what we can actually demonstrate by breathing through any of the nostrils. So we have multiple techniques. Some of them are kriyas, some are pranayamas, but the whole process is we are going to regulate our breathing. So as it is said, tasmin sati shvasa prashvasa yor gati vichedaha. Gati is the speed on one side, and it is the process by means of which we can break this this flow of air, which includes a duration. For example, whether you can slow it down, we can increase the speed, etc. Various techniques, we manipulate some part of it. So in Kapalabhati, so we are actually manipulating the rate. In Bastrika, along with rate, we manipulate depth. In Kumbhak Pranayamas, we do breath holding. While Sadanta, Shitali, Shitkari, we use our mouth. And Surya, Chandra, and Chandra, Anulom Vilom, and Nadi Shodhana, we use nostrils. And in Brahmari, we particularly use a chanting, resonance production. Today, technology has made this process of understanding underlying mechanisms very easy. Either you use simplest tools like autonomic function testing laboratory, you use functional near-infrared spectroscopy to understand the blood oxygenation levels when you are doing a practice, be it nostril breathing, be it any other thing. You can also look at the hemodynamic changes, the blood flow to the brain through transcranial Doppler. So this has helped in understanding the underlying mechanisms of these pranayamas so well. Otherwise, we used to ask a question whether the effects of pranayamas are ipsilateral or contralateral. Is same side of the brain is stimulated or the opposite side? So the answers are very much clear. with technology like this. Some studies like Kapalabhati, when it was done, it demonstrated that actually after the practice of Kapalabhati, it shows such a relaxing effect, like the electrical activity of the brain has slowed down. Okay, so what used to be very high frequency, very high voltage related electrical activity, that actually subsides and you have wonderful relaxation effect. And also it influences those areas of the brain which regulate attention. I'm going to talk about it when I come to meditation a little more. It can also influence, like a right nostril breathing or left nostril breathing can have an impact on various aspects, either on the same side of the brain or on the opposite side of the brain. So this actually gives us an indication that particularly when you have these trigeminal nerve endings, so you have this kind of a crossing over and then reaching both sides. The effect can be either too intense on one side or it can be equal on both the sides. So I will just give that final understanding. What I have reached today is that it is not as simple as when you do a practice, it is going to produce this effect. It is certainly going to produce an effect, but it also depends on an individual, what is needed for him or for her. So yoga has this special ability of understanding what is needed to an individual and it modifies the effects. So there are applications mentioned over here: right nostril increasing oxygen consumption, blood pressure, blood flow, etc., etc. While the left nostril breathing showing opposite effects, like you have a reduction in blood pressure, etc. So you can use them. These are the indications. Like in left nostril breathing probably is suitable for anxiety reduction, insomnia, etc. So alternate nostril breathing has been shown to be most balancing one, where and that's what I was telling, that there is no one medicine which can actually produce two effects. But there is one pranayama which can produce two effects, which is Nadi Shuddhi pranayama. Bhastrika, once again demonstrating amazing ability to actually make you very sharp. Like it can reduce your reaction time, whereby you can react much quicker. And some of the studies what we have done also demonstrated that the difference between Bhastrika and Kumbhaka using transcranial Doppler. So it showed that the end diastolic volume, mean flow velocity increases in there is an increase in pulsatility index during Bhastrika. As you know, pulsatility index actually determines the resistance offered by a vessel for the flow of blood. So relaxation is depicted by reduction in pulsatility index, which we saw when an individual did a Kumbhaka based practice. Brahmari has also shown very interesting results. Multiple studies are there. What we have done very early 1980s and what we have done recently 2017, talking about the same beneficial effects, like HRV showing reduction in sympathetic and increase in parasympathetic. While during the practice, like in Kapalabhati, even in Brahmari, the sympathetic has gone up and it comes down immediately after the practice. So this is an interesting study which was recently published. Of course, this was looked upon very earlier time, and many more studies are going on recently. Humming and nitric oxide levels. What we talk about Brahmari, can Brahmari or the humming increase the nitric oxide levels in the in the nasal mucosa, particularly looking at the paranasal sinuses. So it was demonstrated that yes, when an individual was sitting quiet versus humming, it has increased significantly the nitric oxide level. As we all know, nitric oxide is an amazing chemical which can have an impact on multiple activities, including inflammatory responses. That's why during COVID, it was spoken a lot that people started using nitric oxide inhalers, etc. And also they started talking about humming or Brahmari. We have so many other evidences to suggest that it can actually bring in very defined changes in the brain. So earlier, non-invasively, to measure brain function, the best tool was auditory evoked potentials, middle latency response, gives us information about that thalamo-hypothalamic areas and all that what is needed. Like you can also look at the brainstem area and the central processing units and association cortices. You can do all that when you do evoke potentials. It demonstrated that pranayama can certainly increase the amplitude of the particular waves which are corresponding with thalamocortical areas, and suggesting that the number of neurons which were doing this task was significantly higher when pranayama was given. So we apply all this in various conditions, particularly like in swimmers, etc. When yoga was given to them, we work with Sports Authority of India, where multiple sports personnel will be given yoga, and we use all this knowledge for developing yoga protocols for them. The last but important area is meditation. So we always look at the traditional text once again, and we use it for its application in understanding through modern research. So we believe that this is one of the higher dimensions of Ashtanga Yoga, seventh limb, and this is the core of Ashtanga Yoga as well. And the two definitions given here, Tatra Pratyaya Ekatanata Dhyana. So it gives us an idea that uninterrupted stream of thoughts and reaching you to the state of expansion called contemplation is dhyana. Western understanding is somewhat similar, and there are some differences. We have these two major classifications: concentrative type or focused attention type, while open monitoring are also brought under mindfulness technique. So there are multiple methodologies used for doing both these different techniques, and we do have in Indian understanding similar things. Credit goes to transcendental meditation researchers and also the inventor Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. We have to remember some of the scientists who have done amazing work when 1970s on transcendental meditation, like Robert Keith Wallace and David Ohm Johnson, who have in 1970s, they could demonstrate practicing transcendental meditation. You can slow down your aging, EEG coherence can be brought in, and lots of other influences on your endocrine function. And another meditation related contribution comes from Benson Henry Institute, Herbert Benson, who initiated relaxation response. And of course, Richie Davidson, who has done lots of studies on Buddhist meditation, including Vipassana in particular, and a strong follower of His Holiness Dalai Lama, which demonstrated that when you do yoga, you can influence your emotional cortex significantly. And these are a couple of other studies demonstrating the same. But in summary, physiological changes following meditations are quite similar across meditations, be it Brahma Kumari, Raja Yoga, Om meditation, cyclic meditation, etc. And when you look at the different phases of meditation, you understand that it can be different. Like everybody, when you get into meditation, first you will be in Chanchalata, move to Ekagrata, Dharana, and then get into Dhyana. The physiological responses are definitely different. This one functional MRI study, when we did, it showed very clearly that when you move from Ekagrata to Dharana, all the disturbing thoughts reduces and there is activation in dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, anterior cingulate, etc. But when you move to Dhyana, the stimulation retains and there is a lot of inhibition at the lower order neurons. So that's what happens. Probably we can actually block or filter off all those disturbing thoughts and just keep our focus on what we want to do. It was also demonstrated not just the functions, but the structure of the brain can also change when you do meditation, particularly influencing those areas of the brain which regulate attentional processes as well as emotions. So can also help in regulating various activities including a painful situation. So these are the mechanisms. I'm not going to the details, but very well understood today. So the trends are very clear. People are looking at those deeper mechanisms whereby for sure we can use these techniques for our understanding. Hence, meditation can be classified as state of alertful rest. Applications can be several, as I said, and I would like to just end my talk by just giving some inputs about the other dimension of research, which is therapy. I am not going to the details because I am sure so many other speakers are going to talk all about therapy. But the important thing is whether we should use one practice or many practices in therapy. Should there be a disease-specific practice? How long and how regularly does one need to practice? And what should the study examine? So as of today, I mean, we know that majority of the research publications are coming from the NCDs, okay, 43%. Apart from that, mental health and chronic diseases are the ones where a lot of research is going on. You will understand that depression, maximum number of studies, cancer, bronchial asthma, back pain, diabetes, etc. You have lots of research studies and the numbers are increasing significantly in recent times. So mechanisms are very well spoken. These are the details just for as a summary I have put. I'm not going to the details of them. Each condition, there are little more than 30, 40, 50, 100 above research studies. The accumulating results are very interesting and definitely we can use in depression, in diabetes, not just reducing blood sugar levels. Yoga has demonstrated the ability to increase insulin sensitivity. So this is one study we have done in healthy volunteers where we can actually increase insulin sensitivity doing yoga, and the beta cell activity also can be increased through yoga. And similarly in cancer, one of our biggest collaborative study with MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston demonstrated that we can actually reduce the side effects of chemo and radiation, and we can improve the quality of life, reduce anxiety, and also improve the cognitive functions in cancer patients, breast cancer patients. So of course, bronchial asthma, women health problems, coronary artery disease, obesity in particular have been very clear in demonstrating that it is certainly a useful thing. We had done this one study in Antarctica. This is to demonstrate not the exceptional feats. I'm coming back from where I started, that we can actually influence our inner capabilities. So this study was done on Antarctica expedition people. India has 2 laboratories in Antarctica, Bharati and Maitri. Our researchers were sent along with the team over there. And we did this in collaboration with Defense Research Development Organization, in particular DIPAS. Once again, DIPAS is very well known for research, courtesy Dr. W. Selvamurthy. We have developed clinical the protocols for one for seasickness, another for doing yoga, managing the extreme climatic challenges in Antarctica. For the first time, yoga was given on the Antarctica glacier. And these are our researchers, so beautiful to see all of them doing yoga over there. But it also indicates particularly how well we can actually understand certain beneficial effects. In this study, we have done gene expression, telomere length, along with range of biochemical assessments. What it showed was, in particular gene expression study, it can actually increase the activity of a particular gene, upregulate an activity of carotene gene, which was otherwise forgotten for a couple of 100 years, because we have got into civilized society. We are not getting exposed to those climatic challenges. So carotene is that which regulates our hair and skin. So probably that's how our great yoga masters had the ability to stay in those small little caves in the Himalayas, not getting affected. So in summary, this is the evidence so far. We have a little more than 8,000 publications. in peer-reviewed journals. We, in the sense, all the yoga publications put together. In that, basic research is little more than 25%, clinical research 65%. Surprisingly, you will see little more than 10% as review articles. And when you look at yoga therapy, yoga used along with other existing therapies, as an adjuvant therapy, 75% of the publications, independent therapy as 22%, and also there were publications on standardizing protocols, clinical protocols. We are also moving from open label clinical trials, which we started where self-selection was one of the criteria, matched control trials, moved to randomized control trials, and the future, what we are moving on is into single case experimental designs where you can study an individual over a period of time rather than putting the values of different individuals as an average. Many countries have contributed to yoga research. So USA is very strong. Next to it is India. And I am very happy to share with all of you that out of around 19 to 20% what has been published from India, close to 10 to 12% has come from this one university, SVYASA, which amounts to around 800 publications. So this is an acknowledgement. Whatever our 800 publications are there, credit goes to all our collaborators from multiple institutions across the world. So collaborators from Manchester University, College of Medicine in London, Nottingham University, on one side in UK and China, and of course US, good number of publications, including from MD Anderson Cancer Center, University of California, San Francisco, where our work on DNA repair mechanism in HIV positive patients were published, and Harvard Medical School, of course, MIT. So we also are involved in conducting an annual international conference with Harvard Med School, and for which we have the collaboration of MIT. We also develop some wearables which can be used in yoga and healthcare in particular. So there are many of them. All this happens at Anveshana Research Laboratory, as Dr. Ananda Balayogi mentioned. And this place has been blessed by such eminent personalities. And I want to close just by showing some of these images. Our Honorable President of India and biggest admirer of yoga research is none other than our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. So, of course, it's not limited to politics. All yoga masters today strongly feel that the science behind yoga has to be brought out. And Sadhguru Jagat Vasudev from Isha, we had a collaborative project on understanding Isha meditators' sleep architecture. We also work with Vishankarji's Art of Living, where presently we are doing a study on intuition. And of course, Swami Ramdev, Dr. Shirley Tellers, who has built a laboratory here at SVYASA, has also built a laboratory at Patanjali. And of course, there are so many other people from outside India have visited. Thanks to all those who have supported us. And I want to end with this definition for research given by Swami Vivekananda. He said that take up one idea, make that one idea your life. Think of it, dream of it, and live on that idea. Let the brain, muscles, nerves, every part of your body be full of that idea, and just leave every other idea alone. This is the way to success. That is way great spiritual giants are produced. And I believe that's the way great researchers, great scientists are produced. And looking forward to seeing many more researchers in the and yoga research subsequently. So take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ananda Balayogi and the Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts on yoga research, bringing from history to the present day. So also thanks to all of you who have been such wonderful listeners, and it certainly motivates every researcher. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manjunath sir. We have
heard so many things about you, but this is the first time we have the privilege of, listening to you. Thanks to this Yoginar and thanks to Ananda sir, because every time there is something happening at our university, he would always mention your name, some place or the other, or when he visits SVYASA, your name definitely comes to us. So very, very wonderful opportunity to be able to listen to you. Thank you so much for that wonderful, mind-blowing presentation. Like I just love the way how you have correlated. That's what research is all about, and that is what yoga is all about. How we experiment and how we experience, and how do we, data collection means just that. So how do we bring the experimentation and the experiential aspects together so that the scientific world also understands and accepts yoga as whatever has been written in the traditional textbooks centuries ago is not just a myth, it is real, and it could be proved nowadays with the technology and the technical advancements that have happened. Thanks to SVYASA, because you have collaborations with so many other universities outside and in India, that all these advancements could happen. I especially the research study in Antarctica, I was like admiring, out in the snow field, they were doing all those Surya Namaskar and asanas and all that, and it's amazing work you're doing. Just one glimpse of whatever you have done, we had it now today, and it is absolutely mind-blowing. And like I just loved how you said we are unable to correlate and understand what is given in the depth of the traditional literature, because there is so much that has been given, but what is our knowledge now is like our knowledge is very limited, that we are not able to perceive the entire literary work that has been given in that proper connotation. So we are taking bits and parts of it and trying to understand, with our limited knowledge, it should be this, and trying to prove and establish that. And also, the way you brought out the ancient wisdom and fundamental knowledge, how it was correlated with the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and the biomechanics. And that was really amazing. Truly, truly wonderful work. The other one which truly have to be, highlighted is how you said, the yoga techniques have an intelligence of their own, and the benefits happen according to the individual, what they are looking out for. So that is very, very true. We also, come across many, many evidences at CYTER while we are interacting with the participants of various programs. The other one is like that took my mind away was the changes in the brain waves, the response with the different states of mind. When it is in the Chanchalata state, Ekagrata, Dharana and Dhyana, you have showed it so well. I just hope and wish that our university will also, come into all this, and fMRI studies could be done, because we have personally been looking out so much for that, so that we could expand to the next level. Otherwise, we request you, sir, personally, if such studies could be done in a collaboration, CYTER with SVYASA, we would be more than happy. We would be honored, truly, truly honored. So thank you so much, sir, for your mind-blowing presentation. Looking forward to more such, interactive presentations and interactive works. On behalf of CYTER, I personally request you again. Thank you so much, sir. Dayanidhi, would you like to say a few words?
Namaste, sir. Yes, Namaste, sir. So it's really a amazing presentation. Most of the things we have learned, and we can able to see how the research has been growing from the ancient to the modern thing. So from one presentation, we can able to see the whole thing in a nice, wonderful manner. So thank you so much, sir, for this And I request the other panelists to give a few words about this. So I request Sangeeta ma'am.
Namaskaram, namaste, sir. Thank you so much for this marvelous presentation. What it provided for me was a reminder that, you know, sometimes we have this misconception, particularly in the West. I'm tuning in from Italy now. I have lived in the United States for a few years. And to be reminded that scientific research was carried by the proponents and the actual acharyas and gurus of the lineage, and that we don't have to, like, there is no split between the teachers and the acharyas and the gurus on this side, and then the scientists being mostly from the West. That's quite a colonialist approach, in fact, and I think it's wonderful to be reminded. It was very helpful. Thank you for all of the archival images that you drew for us. That made it very visual. And also thank you for providing with so many imaging from the MRIs and all of the graphics, because sometimes receiving a list of information, right? I mean, the secretion of serotonin and the decreasing of cortisol, you know, we see them in the papers and we hear them and we memorize them, but sometimes just to see an image of the brain opens up a deeper understanding and study. So and this last quote, sir, that you shared about focusing on one idea is exactly what I needed, because sometimes as a researcher and a practitioner, I feel slightly overwhelmed by the amount of information. And the more I feel overwhelmed, the more I want to know, and the more I want to know, the more I feel overwhelmed. And paradoxically, that's the opposite of the goal, which is chitta vritti nirodha. And instead, I'm just like stressed about learning so much all the time and feeling like I know nothing at all. So I am going to actually use this motto moving forward. So thank you so much for modeling that and proposing that as an opportunity for all of the researchers out there and the practitioners, that sometimes having one clear research goal or focus can open up to all of the other, you know, researches anyway. So such an honor to know you. I hope to be studying and training with you at some point. And my plan is to come to India soon, hopefully, when COVID allows, and really learn from you all. So thank you all, everybody on this panel. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangeeta. Bharata, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Very, very inspiring to hear your explanations. It was especially wonderful to gain some more insights into some of the history of the application of scientific method and research to these practices that are so dear to us, that are not scientists and not medical professionals. So very inspiring. Also, you made a statement that one of the approaches that you bring to the research and in terms of thinking of research methodologies and priorities is that you look at the yogic scriptures to gain ideas for the research. And I find that that's just such a beautiful testimony, a beautiful integration of these sacred practices with scientific method and the advancement of knowledge. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Bharata. Can I invite Yogacharini Devasena Bhavanani ji to say a few words? Miss, I think you need to unmute. Yeah.
Namaste, everyone. It was wonderful section, Dr. Sharma ji. it's so much, so much to observe. As Dr. Sangeeta said, it's a lot of thing, and as Dr. Meena mentioned, a lot of very clear, neat information, very clearly how to go, how to do. So you have, I mean, touched east to west, I think, all the research and the scientific method. And so I think like doctors give the pills for this problem, that problems are like that. You would just list out for the most of the problems. So it's a wonderful work actually, because people are facing many problems, and so both the ways actually, so they can feel and they can practice and come out of that and balance in the family, I mean in the life. So lot of work, lot of publications and a lot of research, many things actually. So lot of work. Thank you so much. It's well help most of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Devsena Miss. Shailaja, would you like to say a few words? Shailaja, yes.
Yeah, so I have to say that I was completely fascinated by this whole presentation, and I thoroughly enjoyed, like it was like a lesson, right, from a historical perspective of research, especially since I'm not a research person and I don't have much information about it. So literally it was like a documentary right from the early stages. And, you know, I was really fascinated knowing that it was right, like the Purva Mimamsa, Uttara Mimamsa, all of that, you know, actually dealt with science and technology. And of course, those visuals, those pictures of seeing all the great Swami Rama, Paramahansa Yogananda, Swami Kuvalyananda, all of them hooked up to those machines and tubes. I mean, I think these are like iconic images. I don't think, you know, the common person has seen. I think a book should be made out of this. Yeah, because this documenting is so important. It is so eye-opening for me. And also that somehow I tend to, you know, we think of research as something new, right? Like something that's modern. I think like Sangeeta was saying, something that's there from the West. And it is so interesting to see all of this was happening so many years ago, documented in our scriptures as well. And like I said, it was like a lesson for me, and extremely daunting because I'm supposed to speak after this like mind-blowing presentation. So yeah, but still it was so worth it, you know, going through this, having this amazing experience. And just thank you so much, really. I mean, just really a fascinating presentation. That's it. Namaste.
Thank you, Shailaja, for those sweet words. And thank you, Dr. Manjunath Sharma sir. Thank you so much for that wonderful, mind-blowing, marvelous. You can add many more adjectives to that, but my vocabulary is very limited, so I'm just stopping with these. So thank you so much. But we would definitely look forward to interact more. And like Sangeeta said, the last, you know, the thought to ponder, the take-home message, just take one idea and make that idea work on that. So which is something I think all of us need to adapt and adopt in future, and to you know, make a little more success, and to little more you know, come into, you know, lay a mark. So that would be really good. Thank you so much again. We are truly indebted to that wonderful presentation. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, madam. And also at the same time, I thank each one of you. I mean, whatever the prizes, I mean, whatever you were talking good about this presentation, I put all this to the feet of all those great yoga masters. So it belongs to them. And to all those yoga researchers who have contributed. So there are so many people sitting in corners and doing this work. So we get an opportunity to share this, so I'm sharing. So to all gurus and to all the wonderful researchers, my most dear Dr. Ananda. We are still waiting for a day to play Mridangam together. So we hope it will happen sometime. But he is a master of everything. So research has been a life for me, but it has taught so much. And I'm so happy to have met each one of you today. And I'm sure we are going to take this relationship forward. through yoga as a means. Thank you. Namaskar.
As all the other, eminent speakers and everybody who had done, one statement again is left with all of us. The greater you are, the more, the person is more filled with humility and humbleness. And I can see the same thing in you also, sir. So thank you again for all that wonderful compilation. Though the research work was done in nook and corner, but you have brought all that and given it to us in one platter here, making it so easy so that we got a glimpse of everything here on screen. So thank you so much for that. Have a good day and stay safe. Take care, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Wishing you all a happy International Day of Yoga. So let us all do some extended yoga tomorrow. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So now it's time to intro to our next speaker, Shailaja Menon ma'am. So she's an author and 500 hours certified Manasa yoga teacher, TV host and speaker. Shailaja grew up in Coimbatore, India, but is now based in Malaysia. She has over 20 years of teaching experience and is the founder of Mat and Beyond Yoga Studio. She is the host of Yoga Shakti, a TV series on Ananda TV based in UK with audience in Europe, UK and North America. She also conducted online asana and pranayama dhyana classes for students in the UK and the USA. She has been invited to speak at several educational institutions and organizations both in Malaysia and India. So we welcome you, ma'am, for this wonderful Yoginar, SBV IDY Yoginar. And I ask Devasana ma'am to say a few words about Shailaja ma'am.
Namaste again, my dear lovely Shailaja. So always very lovely to see her, and she's doing a lot of good work. And whenever she's arranging the interview, I was very curiosity which topic she selected, and so mostly on Friday, so I will miss mostly because when we are going to the classes, and of course in the lockdown we had the chance to see and be in the interview, and very enjoyable and a different topic, and she is really helping and making the thing, taking the message to the different people, different parts of the country, over the country she's taking and trying her hard work through her classes, courses giving, and of course with the TV show, it's very easily she can reach now. I was actually surprised to see her, all the asanas she can do even in this age, continuing, and so it was very interesting actually. We're always interested to see her programs, so I'm looking forward to be in her section. Thank you, Shailaja. Best of luck.
Thank you so much, Devasena ji. I needed that last line, especially best of luck. I need all the luck. I mean, this is the last presentation of this completely eminent set of panel of speakers and researchers. And here I come in at the very end, but everything that needs to be said, I think has been said. But I will still do my best, and I will share my journey. I think in many ways, I'm going to look at it as a full circle, like coming back to the basics when people set up, why do people even go to a yoga class? Why is yoga so popular the world over? And why is it such a global phenomenon? I mean, it all begins with a common person, a lay person, you know, going in search of something, right? Some peace, some feeling that they think the yoga class can give them. And I'm going to begin from there. So before I go into my presentation, I just would like to thank Dr. Ananda Balyogi Bhavnani and the entire CYTER team for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share this stage with so many luminous and eminent personalities. And after listening to the amazing work that Dr. Meena and CYTER team and everybody else does, they have spoken so highly of Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth. So I would like to thank the management for their continuous support of CYTER, which enables them to do so much great work. And I also have learned so much just from listening to all of you. So this has been a truly educational experience. Now, unlike many of you blessed personalities, yoga was really a non-part of my vocabulary growing up. In fact, it was not something I even, really heard of or thought of very much. But I think my soul had a different plan, and there was a soul's calling that I heeded to. And I'm very grateful to the universe and the great gurus whose blessings have guided me to truly phenomenal teachers. And because of that, I'm able to remain a student always and continue to grow. So at this point, I would just like to recall my teachers who have brought me to this point. I started off, with Mataji Divyananda of Integral Yoga, my deepest gratitude to her, who 22 years ago encouraged me not just to be a student of yoga, but also to become a yoga teacher, which, believe me, I had never thought of. And it was not even something that crossed my mind. But then when she said it, it was like it was just meant to be. And then for the last 18 years, I have been with my teacher, Manoj Kaimal of Manasa Yoga, who opened my mind to embodying philosophy in asana practice, right? So asana has become very maligned these days, it's just a stretch practice or just an exercise practice, but he's one of those incredible teachers who brought in the Yoga Sutras, Vedanta, the Bhagavad Gita, all of those beautiful principles and philosophy into the asana practice, it truly transforming it. And then the pandemic and my friendship with Dr. Kaustubh Desikachar brought Dr. Ananda into my life. And I am simply in awe of his immense knowledge spanning various fields, yoga, medicine, philosophy, music, dance. And I'm sure Devsena ma'am can also add a few more that I'm not aware of. And, it was just so incredible getting to know him. But more than that, I think what really struck me was, the way he lived his life, his generosity of spirit in sharing his information with everybody who came his way through the various platforms that he has. And also, I think most of us sitting here are a testimony to the fact that he generously extends his support to everyone that is blessed to be in his circle, and he encourages everybody to grow and express their highest potential. So yes, I do feel like my journey is guided by the hand of grace. Now I'm going to start my slides and we will just go from there. So let's start at the very beginning. Like Dr. Ramesh Bijlani sir mentioned, we all seem to be beginning with this slide. So, and also after, Sri Bharata's profound presentation yesterday, after Dr. Manjunath's incredible presentation just now, this might seem like really kindergarten stuff, but in much of the world, this is what yoga is viewed as, right? Just some contortions that people do with their bodies. And so, what is it really all about? Is that all there is to it, or is there something more to it? So I go back to the Yoga Sutras, where right in the very beginning, I think Maharishi Patanjali puts out the sutras, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha and Tadadrushuhu Surippe Avastanam, where through the practice of yoga, the chittas and the vrittis of the chitta get settled. And eventually we become established in our swarupa, our true self. So this, for a common person, for a lay person, this getting established in swarupa is a long way off. But at least through the practice, we get glimpses of a self that is not constantly agitated, depressed, filled with anxiety and panic, a self not helplessly tossed between dualities. And then we become open again to the possibilities of another way of existence, transcending the tyranny of the mind. Now, one analogy that I like to use is that of the waves in the ocean. And like the waves of the ocean, all our stormy emotions, anger, rage, frustration, depression, anxiety, hopelessness, all of them stand up in that state of udaranam. And then we mistakenly build our identity around it, right? I am an angry person. I am a depressed person. I'm an anxious person. I get easily panicked. But then through the practice of yoga, as we get more and more tastes of this inner bliss, of these inner states, we realize that these are just fleeting emotions and we don't really, that's not really our personality. And that is why this understanding of the nature of the mind, the vrittis, the kleshas, developing the ability to have a working relationship with the mind is so important in stress relief, because without it, we're always tossed between the waves of Shipta, agitation, and reactivity. So we start right in the beginning with Dukkham, exploring Dukkham. So before we go that, just going into some understanding of the mind, right? So Parinama Dukkha is something that happens with change. So all the while we keep thinking of life as permanent. We think everything is going to be the same. But if there is anything this pandemic has taught us, that everything changes, right? Even the whole lifestyle that we had is different. We can't even go out right now. We're all under lockdown, right? Every single thing that we held dear, traveling, meeting family, all of that has changed, the way we work. But still we suffer because we want things to be the same. And that causes that Parinama Dukkha. And then this Parinama Dukkha exists over all the different dimensions of our life. When it comes to work, right? Where we expect work in the earlier days, you know, I think the corporate environment was different. People started with a job and they continued with the job. But then now things are so different, and, you know, work, people lose their jobs all the time. And because of that, we are sometimes unable to deal with all this. And then we again suffer because of it. And then relationships, again, we think relationships last forever, but they don't. And then again, we suffer because of it. So all of these different aspects of our life, we want things to be the same, right? Even if something good happens, right? That becomes a very positive samskara. But then we are so addicted to that good feeling that we want it to continue and continue. And then that doesn't happen because of that universal principle of anitya, where everything is bound to change. Right? So we suffer because we want things to be the same, but change is the nature, and, you know, things do change. And then there is Tapa Dukkha, where is a direct experience of pain, where something happens, either physically to us, we get attacked physically, or we get disappointed, people do not meet you know, our expectation, and then we experience pain. And then we go to Samskara Dukkha, where everyday patterns of living, right? So I always think the most easy way to relate to Samskara Dukkha is waking up in the morning and then realizing that you've run out of coffee, right? So you can't get your morning kappa. And then that immediately causes discomfort, because we are all so used to our patterns. So initially we create our patterns, and then our patterns, you know, kind of take hold of us. And then when we try to change them and, you know, we can't kind of keep up to them, then we suffer. And then there is guna vritti virodha, where the gunas also sometimes don't cooperate with us. When we want to sleep, then maybe it is the rajas guna that is more active than the tamas. And then similarly, when we are driving a car, maybe it is the tamas guna that is more active than rajas. So all these gunas also can play havoc with us. And because of all these different reasons, we suffer. And then even according to the nature of the mind, there are some, we're so identified with the mind, but it is important that we learn to be objective over our minds. So there are some different aspects of the mind that I'd like to share. Now, according to Deepak Chopra, we have some 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. But out of these thoughts, most of the thoughts, maybe 90 to 95% of the thoughts are repetitive. And there are actually only very few inspiring thoughts that we have. Yeah, so we have to really learn to be objective about our minds, to see our minds as separate of ourselves, and to really be able to view it and to see what is the nature of our minds. And these are all things that are, you know, like so many scientific studies have been done. So these are all things that, you know, bear some evidence, because, you know, they're all, you know, scientifically seen. And then there is also the natural negativity bias that the mind has, which is again something we need to know, because otherwise, like, we just get sucked into the, you know, upheavals of the mind and the drama of the mind. So we have to realize that there is a natural negativity bias that the mind suffers from. And this may be due to evolutionary reasons. Maybe that was the only way that we could stay alive as hunter-gatherers. We had to look out for danger in every corner. But because of that, you know, maybe we have 10 people who say hello to us, but there may be one person who doesn't. And then we only think about the one person who ignored us, right? And similarly, we may be going through a phase in life where everything is going right, and there may be just one thing that is wrong. but our minds tend to only focus on the one thing that goes wrong. So if we all just reflect on our minds a little bit, we'll realize that that is really the nature of the mind. So it requires us to be objective about our minds, and it requires us to see all this that goes on in our minds, so that when that happens, and that is bound to happen, but at least we don't get sucked into the drama of the mind, and we're able to just observe it and not get caught up in it. So to know the mind, to be aware of the mind, to be objective of the mind, all of that is necessary in order to be able to establish a working relationship with the mind. That's what I call it. So control of the mind is too big a word, right? It's very hard to control the mind. But at least what we can hope for through this deepening of consciousness and awareness is to establish a working relationship with the mind, where the mind doesn't completely take over us, and we are also able to exert some control and some influence over the state of our minds, and we can guide our minds to better places. So we have to understand that anxiety, stress, loops of negative thinking are all the default grazing grounds of the mind, and we have to really be conscious of that. So life happens, disappointments, betrayal, crashing of dreams, uncertainty, job loss, financial insecurity. All of these are the realities that we live in. And because of this, our bodies are always in fight or flight, sympathetic overdrive, which releases cortisol into our bloodstream, right? We have a constant cortisol drip because of chronic stress. Now we have to know that this chronic stress, again, it's chronic stress, not just once in a way the stress that we experience. Chronic stress actually affects our inflammatory response, which in turn, results in development and progression of inflammatory diseases like cardiovascular diseases, autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, and even cancers. So many of us, we must understand, live in this unconscious manner all the time, only reacting to the stress around us. Now, in order to bring about balance into our bodies, the need of the hour is to activate the rest and digest, or the relaxation response of the parasympathetic nervous system. And here is where the yoga practice steps in. Here is where the yoga practice empowers us, because yoga offers us so many different tools, from deep breathing to deep stretching to deep relaxation to deep absorption, coupled with all the other limbs of the Ashtanga yoga to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and bring balance into our bodies and minds. And through all of these processes, we become more conscious human beings. I always tell that the greatness of yoga practice is that it is an experiential practice. People, even doctors now, no offense to doctors, but everybody will tell you, just relax, take it easy, don't be stressed. And, you can tell your mind, don't be stressed, but your mind is going to be stressed, right? How do you de-stress, right? And then you go drink a cup of coffee, or they'll tell you get a massage. All of that are very temporary. But to really elicit deep release and deep relaxation, we need these tools of the yoga practice. We need to understand how to move our bodies. We need to know how to breathe well. We need to know how to shift consciously the change in our minds, in our perspective. And it is all of this that ultimately helps us to handle stress. So, so we go into this next slide, where again, Maharishi Patanjali tells us that Samyoga, this is the word that I'm most fascinated with, that Samyoga is really the reason why we suffer. And this Samyoga is this deep identification that we have. Yeah, so this, we identify with everything and everyone that comes our way. So I remember Dr. Ananda saying that people would come to him and say, I'm diabetic, or, especially with our illness, so I'm hypertensive. We are so identified with all of that. And it's not just our illness, right? We are identified with Nama, Rupa, Priya, right? We are identified with our job titles, our job positions, and, name in society, again, is a big thing. And then our form, again, is something that we're all so, very concerned about and very identified with. We actually identify ourselves based on, the color of our skin, the shape of our bodies. So we're so identified with all of this. And then Priya is like even trends that are happening consistently, right? At different points in time, different trends happen. And we're so identified with all of that. So we tend to get identified with, I always joke that even the side of the bed that we sleep in, we're so attached to. And even, you know, when we go, I notice all of this, like even in my yoga class, I see people, they will put their mats out in the very same place, right? We get so attached even to the mat space in a yoga class. When I go to the gym, I find myself also looking for the very same parking spot that I always park in. And you actually feel a pang of, you know, discomfort when you see that it's taken up by somebody else. So we have to see all this. We have to see that nature of the mind to get attached to everything, to get identified with everything. And because of that, we have to understand that we suffer. So it's important to see that, right? So you have to, that witnessing aspect is so important, that Sakshi Bhava, where we're able to just step back and just continuously watch our mind, not identifying with it, not judging it, but simply watching. Yeah, so that interest we have to have in knowing ourselves better, in an understanding that it is in that knowledge of ourselves that we can actually, you know, transform into a better version of ourselves. Yeah, otherwise we just remain stuck. So we move to the next slide, where Heyam Dukkam Anagatam. Again, this is a very famous verse, and I remember Dr. Ananda saying that Ammaji used to make all of them say this every day, you know, in the mornings. So again, this is something I heard from Kaustub's explanation. So just sharing it because it really resonated with me. So he says that Maharishi Patanjali asks us to look at suffering not only as, you know, but to understand that it's really a symptom, it's not a cause, right? It's as a result of something. So we have to really deeply look into it, and most importantly, take responsibility for our suffering, because the nature of the mind is to always blame the external world. Everybody else is at fault except for us. So we have to understand that we could be at fault too. There could be something wrong with us too. And mostly there is something wrong with our thinking, right? It'll go back to the kleshas, it'll go back to raga dvesha. So we have to really explore all that and see all that, right? And then he gives the example of a woman who's abused. They say the first time you're abused, maybe that's not your fault, but if we continue to stay in that situation where we're abused or where we're treated without respect, then we really have to take responsibility for the situation that we are in. So this is a very deep sutra where it's very empowering, because it calls on us to be conscious human beings, to make the connection that our future suffering, this future suffering is not just something that happens in the future, that future actually is a result of our present actions. So we have to really be present to what is going on in our lives, to situations in our life, and we have to take the right action today in order to be able to prevent future suffering. So it's not about just saying, you know, we look at it in the future, but to understand that our present creates our future. So our present situation, our present action has to be so conscious. Not to be victim to our suffering, but to take responsibility and act consciously. Now we go into, this is really the, to me, this is one of the most beautiful sutras, and it sums up everything. Like everything is here for whether stress relief to samadhi. I think everything is right here in these 8 limbs of yoga. And each of them tells us the yamas and niyamas often ignored and not practiced, right? But they really are the foundation. They really are the cornerstone to our practice, because without them, we don't really, everything is in our minds, right? So without that, we really don't change our minds, and we continue to be in the same places. So Ashtanga Yoga contains all of the different practices, and I'm sure most of you will be familiar with it. So all the points that I had mentioned earlier about deep stretching, deep relaxation, all of that is contained here, from pranayama, dharana, dhyana, asana, all of that is here. And by practicing the Ashtanga Yoga, to me, is a sure way to release stress. And technically, how is stress defined? So it's really when, you know, the body is in a state of homeostasis. And the important words here is threatened. Yeah, when we feel a threat or we perceive a threat. Yeah, so feeling a threat is sometimes maybe real, right? It could be a pramana, direct experience of threat. But sometimes, and most often, Dr. Ananda says actually in his Yoga Sutra talks, He says most often actually it is just, we just perceive it to be a threat. We imagine that everybody's talking about us. We imagine that, people are commenting on us when, they are probably not. So we have to understand that, stress is sometimes just a perception and it's not really real. So so the next one goes into distress. So this, I think everybody is quite familiar with the different problems that come with stress, anxiety, depression, digestive problems. So the only things I wanted to say was, there was some research done and in the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, and they found that high levels of stress hormones in the brains of mice were associated with larger amounts of beta amyloid plaques, proteins believed to play a role in Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's, I think, is not mentioned here, and also fertility. So again, there was another study that was done, and 1 in 8 couples in the US have problems getting pregnant or sustaining a pregnancy. And in May 2014, again, there was a study published in the journal Fertility and Sterility, and it was found that stress in men can again lead to reduced sperm and semen quality, which may negatively affect fertility. So stress, we don't understand it. Like initially, stress was only about cardiovascular diseases, but when we actually now today, we understand that it is, like they say, 95% of all illnesses begin with stress. Yeah, so brain and stress. So brain is also affected deeply by stress. It shrinks the size of hippocampus, which is associated with memory and long-term memory. And also amygdala, which is the nut that drives us nuts. So that also is activated, and more people, it's more active in people who are depressed. And also it shrinks the dendrites. So our gray matter in the brain is filled with billions of neurons, and all of these are connected. So it's like this big telephone network, and all of that is connected by dendrites who constantly are passing on information through the dendrites. And then the other end of the neuron is the axon, which is also connected to some 10,000 other neurons. So there's this huge network through which information is passed. And all of that gets affected when the brain gets affected due to stress. So to understand that, again, stress is not just something that affects our bodies, but eventually it affects our brain. And, the most diseases that people today are really worried about, including Alzheimer's, all of that is related to stress. So this is the very famous HP axis. Now, Dr. Ananda did all this yesterday, so I'm not going to go into it. But basically that this pathway, the hypothalamus, the pituitary and the adrenals, so that HPA pathway, that is where stress happens. But again, in Dr. Ananda's courses only talk very interestingly how the same pathway could be used to even, de-stress. So it's not about the pathway, right? So a knife can be used either to kill somebody, or it can be also used to cut up vegetables for a salad. So it's not, the problem is not the pathway, but the problem is the limbic system above the hypothalamus, which is constantly activated, reactive, agitated, and screaming that, people are saying things about them, perceiving threats that don't exist, right? So to understand that there is where we have to work. And the next few slides will also connect to that. So this is, again, these are all the fascinating things, or the concepts that fascinated me when I first came into yoga practice, to understand that the mind and the body are deeply connected, right? That our every thought has a resulting chemical release in our bodies. And when we get angry or agitated, the body releases cortisol, adrenaline, norepinephrine. And then when we're excited and happy, the body releases endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. So to understand that our bodies and minds are so deeply connected. And then also that our cells are constantly listening, and every part of our body can hear our thoughts and feel our emotions, which is why our bodies tense in uncertainty, braces in threat, freezes in shock, and collapses in hopelessness. And then when we say a gut feeling, it is true, as we can really feel in our stomachs. In fact, the gut is often referred to as the second brain. And we have to know that though we call it mind and body, that we call the mind, we tend to think of it as only in our brain. Somehow the mind and brain seem very connected. But actually, now it is understood that the mind is not really restricted to the brain, but it is actually all over our bodies. So these are all some of the fascinating insights I got once I entered and started delving into all of this. Now the mind and breath is also connected. So again, I think Dr. Manjunath was talking about this as well in his presentation, how the state of the body, state of the breath are all connected. And every emotion has influence on the state of the breath. It creates a certain rhythm. So all of this we can experience ourselves when we just reflect a little bit into our lives, right? When we're angry or agitated, if we notice our breath, it will be different, it'll be jerky, it won't be smooth, right? Similarly, when we are very calm and maybe admiring a sunrise or a sunset, if we notice our breathing pattern, we realize that it's very soft, it's very shallow, very subtle, right? So we understand that the state of our mind and our breath is deeply connected as well, yeah? And then this again is a very beautiful slide because by Adi Shankaracharya, he gives a very beautiful verse that it basically explains that whatever we can relate to as my or mine is not I. So in that verse, he talks about how we say my bangle, my earring, my house, right? All of that we know very clearly that it's not I, right? We also can think about, even my body, we can think as not I. But then somehow when it comes to the mind, we think of it as we are the mind, right? So to me, this is a one definition that really helps us to understand that we are not the mind, which is such an important distinction to make, because it is only through that distinction we understand that, like how we can work with our body, strengthen our muscles, all of that. Similarly, the mind too can be worked at, that we are not doomed by the minds that we have the capacity to really change the nature of our minds, shift the minds to better states, right? But we have to consciously work with it. So to understand that you are not your mind really is one of the most important understandings that we can have about ourselves. So in fact, even in our yoga classes, the first thing we do when we come into class is to simply close eyes and observe the mind. Yeah, by just observing the mind as separate from ourselves, we understand that we are not the mind. Yeah, and it gives us some objectivity from the mind. It gives us some space to be able to work with the mind. Right? So the basic understanding that I would like all of you to have is that we are not our minds and we have the capacity to work with our minds. So we connect to this beautiful verse of Atha. So Atha simply means being present. It sounds simple enough too, but then we are never present. Yeah, so always we are very disjointed. Our bodies are in one place, our minds are somewhere else. I always say when we're in office, we're thinking about, oh, how wonderful it would be to spend time with our children, worrying about our children. Then we're at home with the child, but we're thinking about deadlines at work. And then we're at home and we're thinking about vacation. We're at vacation, we're thinking about work. So we're never together, mind and body. But the first thing is to realize that, to see that. Yeah, we have to really see ourselves and see the functions. And I always say more than functions, I think is dysfunctions of the mind as well. So that awareness of the mind has to be there. And that comes from only that constant witnessing of the mind. Yeah, so that is such an important practice, that swadhyaya, that constant self-study. Yeah, so I tell my students in class, I said, we have to be like scientists and we have to just constantly look at our minds, dissect our thoughts, right? And then we have to see whether does this thought really resonate. And again, I thought this was all yoga learning. And I was recently very pleasantly surprised to hear a very famous neuroscientist in the US, Dr. Daniel Amen, and he was saying the very same thing, that mind just generates thoughts, that, you know, you don't have to believe every thought that your mind generates. And you really have to look at your mind, you have to look at your thought, you have to ask yourself, is this really true? And only then proceed to believe it or not believe it. Yeah, so to understand that, you know, the mind is something that can really play tricks on us, can tell us things that are not really true, but we have to look, that ability to witness the mind without identification, without judgment is such an important skill. And to me, we learn these skills in our yoga practice. Yeah, so connecting to the Atha practice. And the other important thing about being present is that it changes the quality of our life, right? So what is our life? Our life is a series of experiences, right? Anubhava dhara, and each of these experiences are strung together like a beautiful bead necklace, right? We have one experience after the other and it's all strung together and we call it the story of our life. Now, the quality of each experience that we have is dependent on the amount or the capacity to be present to that experience. Otherwise, we live life on a very superficial basis, always lost in thoughts of the past or worries about the future, worries that mostly never even happen. And then we just go through life, and at the end of life, we wonder what happened. And a lot of the times we feel stuck, right? We have all these great intentions. I want to do this, I want to do that, but we feel stuck. Nothing changes in our lives. Again, I draw on Dr. Bruce Lipton, who goes on to say that that is because 95% of the time we live in our subconscious minds, and our subconscious patterns are what run our lives. And that is also a direct result of not being present. Yeah, so these subconscious patterns, he says, are instilled in us before the age of 7. Because he says at that, from 0 to 7, he says our minds, the child's minds are in a hypnotic stage, where it is the brainwave activity is very low and it's very hypnotic, and that's the theta state. So he says that in that age, you are only able to absorb. You can't really judge or decide for yourself whether it's true or not. Like a sponge, we just absorb whatever people tell us, family around us, society around us, the way we're expected to behave, what we're supposed to believe. And we're functioning out of those unconscious patterns for the rest of our life. Yeah, so that is why despite our best intention, we don't really shift. Yeah, we don't really change. That is because of lack of consciousness, lack of being present. Yeah, so that is why this Atha, if this, I always tell my students, if there's one principle we can adopt in our life and we can consciously connect to it throughout the day, right? Every single relationship in our life would change, right? When your child is talking to you, listen, really try to listen to your child, right? If you're at work, if you're sitting in front of your computer, it's amazing at how distracted we are. We're always on our phones, checking Instagram, checking Facebook. So try to see if you can just switch everything off, whether you can reduce the distraction, where you can really be present to your work. And each of these dimensions of our life will only improve through this Atha practice. So this is one primary practice that we could just be conscious of, whether the question we ask in our class is Yatha Mana, where is your mind? Right? So all the time, I always tell them, it's not just during yoga class, but throughout the day, keep checking in on yourself. Where is your mind, right? Where is your mind? Is your mind where your body is, or is your mind somewhere else? And then we realize that we try to be present. We have all these good intentions. Okay, I'm going to be present. We close our eyes, but we realize that again, we are not able to be present, because what blocks our mind is grudges, problems that we have, or problems that we assume we're going to have. All of these block our experience of the present moment. And because of that, we need to adopt this principle of Tanu or thinning, right? Of releasing all of that, of letting it go. And the yoga practice again gives us beautiful tools of the body and the breath. So we have to understand, when we think of the mind, body, breath complex, the mind is the one that is always wandering, right? But the body and the breath are always present. And we have these beautiful tools to ground the mind into, and then we can really be present. So this letting go principle again is so commonly say, oh, let things go, let things go. But the thing is, how do you let things go, right? You have to have a system. The more you want to let something go, the more it consumes you. But then if you can work with your mind, right? So that is where all this work that we put in, being conscious of the mind, being able to direct our mind where we choose, right? All of that work comes in here. When we are able to choose our point of focus, when we say, I'm going to focus on my breath, or when we say, I'm going to focus on my body during asana practice, I'm just really going to explore my body through the asana practice, right? And when we can do that, then the letting go is natural. There's no struggle, there's no fight, because we get absorbed into whatever it is that we're focusing on. But we have to develop that capacity to consciously shift our attention where we choose. Yeah, that is a very important skill that we develop, and we can develop that in our asana practice, in our yoga class, in our pranayama practice, because attention is the key, right? What is the difference between doing a stretch and, you know, like yesterday was quite funny, I think, where some gymnastic poses were shown, and you know, it looked very much like, you know, the handstand that we do in yoga class, right? So the key is the mind. The key is our capacity to hold attention, our capacity to be focused on it, whether we're aware of the breath. The inner work is what makes it a yoga practice. Yeah, so asana is from shape of the body to state of the mind. And we have to know that it's not just creating these different shapes. It begins with shape. So it looks like a shape, right? We're just creating some shape with the body. But like I just said, it's the inner work, right? With mindfulness, with awareness of the breath, with conscious working with the mind. all of that goes into creating states of mind. Yeah, so asanas again are very beautifully created to connect us to different states of mind. So I think it was Dr. Ananda's one of his beautiful morning talks where he talked about bhavana, right? So about how we are creating these beautiful states of mind through the body. Yeah, so we connect to strong states of mind. We do Virabhadrasana postures, and then we do back bends, and we connect to those open states of mind with the body. And we go into balancing postures, and we create the states of balance. So we have to understand that we use the body as a tool, but it's not just about creating a shape and posting that on Instagram. While that is great, we have to know that it's so much more than that. That ultimately we're creating states of mind, we're shifting states of mind, we're working with energy, we're working with all of that. And as we release the physiology of stress, the psychology of stress releases too. And that is so, important to understand. Dr. Ananda recently about somatopsyche. Yeah, so that's how asanas work, right? So we work with the soma, which is the body, and then it translates into the psyche, and eventually we learn to release all of that. And then when we are able to do that, then our hearts open to the present moment. Yeah, because otherwise the present moment is always blocked. Yeah, so we have to know that emotions of the mind get mirrored as muscular patterns in the tissues of the body, and repeated thoughts become habitual thought patterns, and habitual thought patterns become a physical postural pattern. So it's so interesting. Not only interesting, but sad also when we have a lot of stress in our bodies and we go into asana practice. These are things I've personally experienced, that when we can't even articulate what is bothering us, we just feel heavy. But when we go into our asana practice, you find tears rolling down your face. You really get that deep release that you seek, which otherwise may have eluded us, and we would have just carried on feeling lousy, feeling heavy, feeling low energy, right? All of it stuck energy. So all of these asanas help us to release all of that. And again, so we know that it's not merely reflected in our minds and chemicals flowing down our bloodstream, which we discussed earlier about how every single thought will release a chemical, right? If you're angry, then cortisol, all of that will flood our bloodstream. But it is also held as tension patterns along our muscles. Yeah, so this is where asana practice is so wonderful, because it is right here through asanas postures from tissues of the muscles that we start the restoration of our nervous system back into homeostasis. Yeah, so I'll just go back to this slide. This is my very favorite theme that I just want to touch upon, and I will go through the rest very fast. But this total fascination about the mind body. Yeah, so I'm talking about a neuroscientist called Dr. Cadence Pert. Well, she discovered that there is intricate two-way communication between mind and body. And by identifying complex neuropeptide messages, they understood these are the pathways through which the mind and body communicate. And according to her, since emotions run every system in the body, don't underestimate their power to treat or heal. And also the mind in its capacity of experiencing is not just a phenomena of the brain like we imagine it to be, but a phenomena of the whole body. So that is why she goes on to say, in fact, that the body is your subconscious mind. Yeah, so all of this I'm just saying for us to understand. Sometimes we tend to dismiss the asana practice, and to understand that that also has a great value, and it is deeply connected to the mind. People go on to even say that it is our subconscious mind. And sometimes we can't directly work with the mind, right? The mind is sad, the mind is disappointed, we can tell it, but it's not going to listen. But by moving our bodies, and I remember, I think even one talk, I think by Swami Geetananda Giri, he talked about how to change the shape, the state of our mind. If you, I was very humorous about how if you're lying down, sit up, if you're sitting up, start walking, right? Which is the same principle, right? About, when you can't do stuff directly with your mind, use your body, right? Move your body, understand that body, mind, energy, all of it is deeply connected, and consciously use your body to elicit a different shift in the state of your energy and shift in the state of your mind. Because ultimately, the state of our minds is so important. I truly believe we have to start the conversation on the mind as well, because otherwise people tend to separate mind and body. We only think about taking pills and dealing with the symptoms of illness, but we don't understand that maybe most of it is actually beginning in the mind. And I truly believe that conversation about health has to begin with the state of our mind, awareness with the state of the mind, and which is why the yoga practice is so important, right? We cannot achieve a good state of mind, a balanced state of mind, unless we know how to work with the mind. And that knowledge comes only through the yoga practice. So I'm just going through this scientific evidence. A lot of it has already been given in by Dr. Manjunath, by Dr. Ananda yesterday. So I don't want to go, so much into it, but basically it shows that a single hour-long session of classical yoga lowered blood cortisol levels in healthy males and females, even with no past yoga experience. And then, just yoga practice helps. Yeah, that's the message. And then breathing, right? So different tools. Right in the beginning, I laid out deep stretching, deep breathing, right? So all of it is there in our sutras. Maharishi Patanjali himself has put this out, Prachardana Vidharana Bhyamva Pranasya. So deep breathing, especially long exhalations, is really the key to relaxation, and focus on exhale. Yeah, so that has become a big theme these days, and to understand that this is all there in our sutras, and the scientific reason is this, that it actually activates our parasympathetic nervous system, and because of that, the long exhalations are so key. But again, in the sutras, all of these, in Hatha Yoga Pradipika, all of these breathing practices have been enumerated, how to do it, right? We have the Nadi Shodhana practice, which focuses on the exhalations being double the length of the inhalations. So all of this is there in our practices, and the key is to focus. So to use your breath to gain the knowledge of pranayama practices, to be able to work with your breath and again elicit release and de-stress, activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is really the key to dealing with stress and getting the body back in balance. Now, mind, body, breath connection, right? So these are all some of the benefits that come: reduced heart rate, reduced breathing rate, reduce blood pressure, right? Reduce levels of stress hormone, anxiety, depression, energy levels, right? All of this, we know that when we quiet the breathing, when we quiet the mind, all of this happens. And this is a key topic, right? Eventually, everything is perspective. So again, I'm going to borrow Dr. Ananda's words. And he says, there is no thing as the truth, right? We always tend to believe that we know everything, the way we think is right, we know the truth, right? All we have is a perspective, right? And we have to understand that. So perspective is everything, especially when it comes to dealing with stress. Again, I heard another very famous clinical psychologist, he was talking about how eventually it is, we always tend to think, we say stress kills us, but he says, no, it's not stress that kills us. It is actually our perspective of the stress that kills us. So he was talking about how 5 people can have the same problem, right? Say 5 people lose their jobs, but how each person deals with that, right? For some person, it might be a release from a situation that they didn't have the courage to give up, but maybe they say, okay, universe, help me give it up. But for some other person, maybe they go into alcoholism to deal with, some people commit suicide. Again, these are all not so far off. I actually know of people who have gone through all of this. So the way we deal, but to understand that it is the I, it is our I, yeah, it is the lens through which we view a situation that determines how we deal with life and stress in particular, right? So to understand that there is no such thing as this is how it is just our view of it. And the power in understanding that is that we can change it. We can tell ourselves a different story. Yeah, to understand that everything is just stories, but we have the capacity to tell ourselves a different story, a better story. And that's what the yoga gives us. It gives us a softer story, right? We can view the same situation through the lens of faith, through the lens of Shraddha. And then the whole perspective becomes so different through the lens of Ishvara Pranidhana. So then the whole situation is so different. So to understand that perspective is everything in working, especially with stress relief. And this is the antidote, the Pratipaksha Bhavana. So as human beings, we will get agitated. There will be people that upset us. There will be situations that don't work out, to our liking. All of these are the realities of life. But the reality is also that we can change the story, right? We can bring in a softer approach. And I think we can bring in a more expanded approach. That I think is the key. So suddenly somebody that I hope you don't hate anyone, but suddenly if you do hate someone, you can't just love the person, right? But what we can do, like again, all of this is Dr. Ananda's words, you can just give that person benefit of doubt, right? Expand your view on the same situation. right? And then getting angry, agitated is all reacting from a survival instinct. So we can try to shift from that survival instinct. And as we are able to say, what is that person's, side of the story? What is that person's view? Then we shift from survival to being in the moment. So his very, very famous words, you shift from brainstem living to prefrontal cortex living. Right? So that is that whole journey of Pratipaksha Bhavana as well, where we just don't keep reacting to situations. We're able to actually respond to it. Change is in the attitude with which we perceive the same situation. It's not that the situation has changed, but we change the way we perceive it. Remember, perspective is everything, and perspective is something we hold in our hands. That is what we have to understand. Nobody else gives us the perspective. And we see what is a bigger picture, what is the other side to this. And I just want to share this one line from, again, Dr. Ananda's notes that I really like. And he once said that when the drone of consciousness goes up to the satellite level, suddenly you see the bigger picture, right? So as we do that, we are able to see a much expanded view of the same picture. Yeah, so all the dots come together and then we can respond rather than react, and we go into a relaxation response rather than a stress response. Yeah, so again, it also means that instead of just constantly reacting, when somebody is saying something that wants to make us react, we have to ask ourselves at that point, which is a really ultimate solid test, right? Whether we can apply vairagya, whether we can shift to right brain, parasympathetic response, take a step back, ask ourselves, why is this person being nasty towards me? What is their story, right? And then, of course, he ends with heaven and hell are choices that we make in the present moment. Yeah, so to understand that Pratipaksha Bhavana is the magic, yeah, that ability to have an expanded view, the ability to see the bigger picture. So again, this is coming to the end of it. So again, like I say, everything is there in our sutras. We don't have to look anywhere else. Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upekshanam, all of these are beautiful qualities to cultivate. To even just talk about them is wonderful in itself. So again, Maharishi Patanjali gives us all of this. And then these are again, very beautiful qualities, Ishvara Pranidhana, Sharanagati. And as yesterday we talked about Atma Pranidhana. So again, all of these very beautiful concepts, to connect to. I mean, I think we need to be reminded of all of this. We need to be connected to these concepts. And eventually these have to be the lens through which we view life. Yeah. So again, yoga practice is not just shapes with the body, but eventually it becomes the lens with which we view life. And through that, our perspective shifts from a very narrow-minded me perspective to a very broader we perspective that is more all-encompassing and also makes allowances for people without being rigid and without being all about how you think the way things should be or how you think how people should respond, to just make allowances, a softer approach to life, which actually helps ourselves in the long run. So that's it. I mean, I know do yoga again is not a very appropriate term. I've heard Dr. Ananda say you cannot do yoga, but I mean, this is just like encouraging people to take to the practice. Yeah. So again, this is this last slide. So just thank you so much. I mean, Dr. Ananda, really for this opportunity to share. All of you are such amazing, truly eminent personalities. And I feel like somebody in kindergarten right here, but this has been my journey. My whole life has been about dealing with my own mind. And like yesterday, we heard that suffering is so important, right? Because suffering sometimes pushes us out of our comfort zone and into uncharted territories. And that was my journey as well. Like I was saying in the beginning about how yoga was really not part of my vocabulary, but it was something that I sought out my soul's urging through the help of some catalyst of some suffering. But I'm so grateful for that today, because that has put me on this path to explore my own mind. So my whole journey has been about my own mind. And, I was so happy to hear Dr. Basava Reddy in the very initial days where he said that on the opening day, he said something which so resonated me, trying to find freedom from suffering inflicted by the mind on a day-to-day basis. Yeah, that is the yoga practice, the mukti from suffering. And I think that was my journey as well, which is why, all I did, I mean, samadhi, all I don't even think about it, because I'm like, today I want to be happy. I want to be released from suffering from my mind, right? And that's all there is to it. So Yeah, so this has been my journey, and this has been my understanding of yoga. The mind has been my focus of practice, because I wanted to first of all release suffering in my own mind, and I found the answers in the sutras. So namaste, and thank you so much again.
Thank you so much, Shailaja, for that amazing presentation. And I'm sorry, in between I had to disappear because with Yoga Day happening, you know, everybody wants a slice of the pie. And so you have so many events that we are all multitasking and multi-presenting. But it's been amazing today. We had such an amazing, wise perspective from Manjunath. Seriously, I was enjoying those slides. I was running up and down because I had set up my other talk upstairs in the hut so that I would not clash with this. And I was running up and down and I was watching the slides and hearing. And I was just thinking, you know, so much has been done. So much has been done. And why is it that we keep on trying to reinvent the wheel? I think that the big struggle we have as yoga researchers and yoga therapy researchers today is we are so busy trying to reinvent the wheel. Well, it's been running very nicely. It is a well-oiled wheel with perfect ball bearings and everything. And we keep on saying, I'm going to improve it. Now, someone said, don't try to fix it if it's working. And I think what we keep on doing is we keep on trying to fix something that is already working. And in trying to fix it, we actually make a mess of it. So I think the takeaway point I got from Dr. Manjunath today was there's so much that has been done. We need to acknowledge it. We need to imbibe it. And I remember many years ago when I started looking at yoga research, the paper on Shirsasana and sympathetic arousal. And at that time, I often thought, I said, you know, what happens is you put somebody upside down, naturally, the body is going to say this is abnormal. Now, what happens is that often with yoga research, we stop right after the practice. But if we were to look at that person 15 minutes later, as compared to somebody who had not done a headstand 15 minutes later, there would be a big difference, because often these yoga practices, the effect they have during the practice and the effect they have after the practice are so diametrically different. So I think this is really opening up a lot. And I often quote that study as so many of the beautiful studies. And again, you gave a beautiful answer to a question asked by Seduraman sir, our previous vice chancellor, which he said the same thing. Ananda, I know you're doing all this work with alternate nostril breathing, but you know, other than the septum here, nothing is different. And how can it be so different? And you gave a very beautiful mechanism for it. I think this is very important to understand why things are happening to enhance our confidence. We talk about Shraddha as faith. I say it is also confidence. That Shraddha is a confidence that yes, yoga will work. Just wait. And I loved your point on, you know, how the technique will have a different effect on different people. And I think what Shailaja said is similar. 5 people lose their job. Each one of them has a different response to it. And I think the same thing with the yoga practices. 5 people get the same technique, 5 people respond differently. Now there will be a general commonality, and then there's the fine tuning. And I remember a patient in Jipma who had hypertension, and we had taught him the left nostril Chandra Anuloma. And he came back after some time and he said, Dr. Ananda, my blood pressure is under control. Everything is going well. I said, that's wonderful. So it's working. And he said, but you know what? I was doing your left nostril breathing. It didn't feel good to me. I started doing right nostril breathing. And this guy for about a month or so was practicing right nostril instead of left. And he had actually got the improvement. And that is actually what got me thinking that normally we say right nostril will increase your blood pressure. It is contraindicated in hypertension. We did a short study where if people have hypertension, right nostril does not increase the blood pressure. So what I actually said in the paper was yoga techniques have their own intelligence. Now my reviewers did not like that. reviewers of the paper and Dr. Manjunath will understand difficulty of dealing with reviewers. They were like, how can you say yoga techniques have intelligence? They're just techniques. I said the yoga techniques have their own intelligence, that what is the soil in which they are being seeded? What is the soil in which the yoga technique is being seeded? Accordingly, the technique will have an effect. So I really appreciated that sharing, Dr. Manjunath, because even though I was running up and down and not on the screen all the time, it got into me. So I really, really appreciated that. And Shailaja, you humble me with your sharing, because such a beautiful from the heart sharing. And as someone out there who, as you said, through suffering, we learn. And I think sometimes people say, why, even I ask the question, why do good people suffer? Recently, a very close mentor of mine has gone through a major surgery. And I asked a question, he's a wonderful human being. He has been excellent in thought. He has been excellent in diet. Everything is perfect. Why should he go through the suffering? It's a question that comes to us. And then I realize suffering is often the vehicle of transformation. So we get caught up with suffering, but what is actually suffering? It is like a bitter pill to make you a better version of yourself. We want the sweet coated placebos. We don't want the bitter pills. So I think we have just had an amazing week, and every session has added to each other. And as I have told everyone, we will be making a consolidated document where all these videos will be on YouTube. We'll give the links to each day with the topic and the speaker. So they're in one place on one page. You will get the whole resource of this Yoginar for 1 week, because there's so much of resource that the people who attended and people who have been watching on Facebook and YouTube, that is one side. But for the future, we want to create a resource for the future, because this type of coming together, as Dr. Manjunath said today, you have Bijlani sir, you have Seduraman sir, you have Selvamurthy sir, you have Madan Mohan sir, you have, every one of us who have come together and come together as a team. So I would like to thank everyone at this time. We are close to the end. And again, everybody is, just satiety has its own limits. So, you don't push a good thing when it's going well. You sort of say, when people are asking for more, that's where you stop, not when they say, when will you stop? So that is how Sunil Gavaskar retired. When they were asking, why is he retiring? Rather than like Kapil Dev, when they asked, when will you retire? So I think the difference here is, let us do that. So we have a lot to go on. I thank each and every one of our beautiful team, Dr. Manjunath today, my dear Shailaja today, Sri Bharata, my dear Sangeeta, Daya, Meena, Devasena, Ramareddy sir, all the stalwarts, Basavareddy sir, our Vice Chancellor, Parija sir, Selvamurthy sir, Bijlani sir, Seduraman sir. We have been blessed by everyone. And through this, we have seen the marvelous work with the special children, the transgender community. I think this is just amazing that we can come together. This is what yoga is, coming together to support each other. So with those thoughts, we conclude for today with the prayer. And it's just been such a marvelous pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhaved. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu, Sarve Janaha Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. So thank you everyone, and happy International Day of Yoga 2021, Yoga for Wellness. They just gave the theme 2 days ago. We created the theme long back with Salutogenesis coming in. So we are right on spot. It's wonderful when you can be on spot there. Be home, be safe, be at home, be with yoga. That is the message for this year. Dhanyavadaha, Nandri, Vanakkam.